Hey, what's going on, everybody? David Noe with Speak Easy HR, presented by Payroll Partners. It is Veterans Day. It's November 11th, episode 14. So, I want to first just thank all the veterans, the brave men and women who have served our country and have fought for our freedom. Super exciting day for everybody to just thank them and everybody that are impacted by them. Thank you for defending our freedoms. We honor you veterans today and every day, so wanted to make sure to start the episode with that. We have an exciting topic today. Dr. Paul DeChant is going to get into a topic that I want to learn a lot about, and I'm sure everybody that have tuned in live to watch this with us. We will have the chat on live with YouTube and LinkedIn. So if you do have a question about what we talk about, please chime in. So if you've never been on this podcast live, welcome. If you have been on it before, welcome back. But we have a few things to get through before we start in this topic. But I want to first introduce our guest today, Dr. Paul DeChant, or Paul, if you want me to call you Paul. You have 25 years of experience practicing family medicine. You've co-authored a book, Preventing Physician Burnout, curing the chaos and returning joy to patient care. You are an adjunct professor for the University of Colorado Denver Business School, principal and co-founder of Organizational Wellbeing Solutions, among other things. You create awesome content in social media, TikTok, LinkedIn, and you have a wealth of knowledge on burnout. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Paul DeChant, welcome.
Thank you, David. It's great to be here. I really appreciate it.
I don't know if I missed anything with that, but you have done some amazing work, and with some of the things that you have talked about in your speaking and coaching. I think the speaker, coach, author, professor, that's just a quick explanation of everything you've been in. So welcome, and I cannot wait to get into this topic. So how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Yeah,
Good.
it's a great day.
Good. I just wanted to remind everybody that is watching, if you haven't tuned in or checked out the website, it is live, speakeasyhr.com. So check out all previous episodes, a new blog that I've started, clips from other episodes, just short clips to catch in and get caught up on some of the topics that we have talked about. But we have a couple of items to get through. We have a special at the end that Paul will give everybody as a special for his services to connect with him. And we want to play the envelope icebreaker game. Obviously, that's one of the most exciting parts for guests to come on and do that. And this show is presented by Payroll Partners. So I want to make sure that we cover what we do at Payroll Partners. Let me see if this is going to actually come up. It's been a little bit choppy, but do you have a Porky payroll process? Is your current payroll provider hogging your time or money? It might be time to check us out at payrollpartners.net, see what we can do for you in the space of payroll and HR technology. So we are live, like I said, on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you are watching live, don't hesitate to comment where you're watching. Thank the veterans. Ask Paul a question, because this topic we're going to get into, I think, covers a lot of people in work, in their personal lives, and just in anybody's life. So this is going to be a really exciting topic that we can get into a little bit. So before we start, I want to play a little envelope icebreaker game with Paul. So I've got the 15 questions here. Don't know if you read through the questions, but you get to pick one number, 1 through 15, and we can see what you pick. So
Oh, gosh.
1 through 15.
I'll pick 3.
3. All right. Envelope 3. Question is, all right, what was your first job that you earned a paycheck with taxes deducted?
I worked in a McDonald's knockoff called Chums. where I
Oh,
flipped burgers, boiled or fry the fries,
okay.
slopped slopped everything you could slop, had the little hat, the whole thing.
What was it called?
Chums or Chub.
Chums. Where
Chub
ch-
or
where
Chums.
was where was this? Out west?
This was in Beaverton, Oregon, right outside
Beaverton,
Portland.
Oregon. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never seen those in the Midwest, so
I think it was only one of them.
only one of them. Okay.
That's
All
right, a
right.
lot.
That's good to know. Do you have any other numbers you want to pick, or I could we have
Choose one you
Lisa.
like. That's fine.
You what?
You pick one. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Well, let's I've got a couple people in here. We've got Lisa in Namibia. I
Maybe
think it's
cool. Yeah.
and we've got Leslie from New Jersey. Welcome in, Leslie. She is a returning guest or listener, so great to have you in here as well. Anybody have a number? Just put it in the comment. 1 through 15. 1 through 15. You can't pick 3. Paul already picked 3, so let's see if I'll give people about 15 seconds to pick a number, and then I've got one in mind if no one picks a number. So let's see. Anybody have a favorite number 1 through 15? Do not pick 3. Leslie or Lisa have a number. If not, sometimes these feeds are a little lagging, but I'll just pick randomly. Oh, 4. Lisa picked 4. All right, perfect. Thank you, Lisa. All right, number 4 of the world famous envelope icebreaker game. What was your absolute dream job?
Wow. Lisa, you might like this because it actually wasn't a true job. When I was a med student, I spent 3 months in a small upcountry hospital in Liberia.
Okay.
And at times I was actually, I was a med student, so I was learning a lot. As I was there for a while and staffing came and went, there were a couple of times when there was a crisis. I was actually the
Yeah.
senior medical med person at the on site in the hospital. It was a 100-bed hospital. It had 30 a pediatric ward with 30 kids with measles. It had just amazing array of pathology, although not most of the pathology we see here in the States. But it was just a fantastic experience. People were wonderful, felt so useful in the work that I was doing, and every day was an adventure.
Wow. Jeez. So that was where in your career? Was that at the early?
So it was just as in my fourth year of medical school while I was finishing up med school before I started my residency. So, for physicians in the States, 4 years of college, 4 years of med school. For
Okay.
me, 3 years of residency in family medicine, and then I
Okay.
started my first job. So still pretty early in my career,
Yeah.
but definitely something I look back on really fondly.
Yeah. Wow. So have you traveled around the world with your work? Has it been a lot of just being in the United States, or was that trip just one of many?
I've done a moderate amount of trips around the world, but not sort of dipping my toe into healthcare.
Okay.
Never a really extended shift somewhere. But I've been to India, Mexico, Haiti, so seeing a lot of places that are tough places where people suffer,
Yeah.
and a lot of opportunity. And I've also worked across the United States. I worked in California, Colorado, Pennsylvania. Really gotten back and forth. And
Yeah.
in Pennsylvania, it was rural Pennsylvania. California, mostly Bay Area, sort of suburban, urban. And in Colorado, it was rural, it was up in the mountains. And that was a great job as well. I worked in Breckenridge for 8 years as a small town family doctor and the ER doctor at the base of the ski hill. So
Oh wow.
that was
Some stories.
yeah. But also, we're going to get into talking about burnout, and to me, so much of burnout, what's important about it is leadership. And there, I got into leadership as well. We merged a bunch of small practices into a larger practice because
Okay.
kind of change was happening in corporate healthcare at the time, and we needed to do it as doctors just to keep our voice at the table.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. Yeah. So let's get into this a little bit because I think we have a lot to cover. I have a lot of questions for you. I'm sure there's a lot that you want to cover. So among the work you're doing, you are an adjunct professor for University of Colorado. That's and you're living in California, so is that more of a remote kind of role, or how's that work?
So I actually got my MBA at the University of Colorado, Denver,
Okay.
and kept in touch with folks there. And this opportunity came up to teach an introductory course on leading individuals and teams for the healthcare MBA students
Okay.
at CU Denver.
Okay.
And so I actually was on campus twice. I flew in for the first class and the last class. The classes in between we did virtually.
Okay. Very neat. So you're still doing that, correct?
Yeah, so I've done it once. We're getting ready to do it
Okay.
probably again next year, and looking
Okay.
at perhaps another class or two to teach as well.
Okay. And then you co-authored a book, which that's been more on the physician burnout. And what kind of struck you to do that? Was that something that you thought about for a while? Was it something that you just at some point decided like you had a lot to go through in this topic and felt like a book to really help people understand it? What led you to write that book?
Yeah, it was really kind of a culmination of a journey.
Yeah.
As practicing as a doctor for 25 years, every day in my office, I was slowly burning out a little bit, wanting to fix things that were wrong. And I was gradually getting greater leadership positions. Ultimately, I became the CEO of a 300 physician group in the Central Valley of California.
Okay.
And there I saw the opportunity to actually truly make a difference, and started to put into place a way to fix the challenges that the docs were having. As the CEO, at the time I became CEO, we were $9 million in the hole. The pressure to fix things quickly was intense, and it was really tempting to try to micromanage and issue mandates. But I knew that would create problems. I mean, I spent
Yeah.
these 25 years myself wanting autonomy to fix things as a doc, and so we found a way to actually give people local control, to act locally, to fix the problems that they identified in their offices. But at the same time, not worry, if we give 300 doctors autonomy, we're going to fall apart from entropy if everybody's going a different direction.
Yeah.
So we also had to help people think globally, think about and align around the common values, the shared values that brought meaning to our work. And so we developed this formula, a management system, and that really allowed people that local autonomy and collective vision working together around a shared goal.
Hmm.
And that was really key
Yeah.
to helping us address burnout, because burnout, the problem, the problem isn't people. For the most part, people are pretty resilient, and they're put in place in jobs that are very difficult to do, because there's just so many pressures, so many changes, all these things happening. And if we don't rethink and redesign the jobs so they're doable, then people need resilience just to cope with it.
Yeah.
If we can get ahead of it, kind of like preventive medicine, create a workplace where people can thrive, then you don't need as much of the resilience support,
Yeah.
and people can do well, businesses do well. It just create and people bring positivity from their workplace home to their families and communities as well.
Yeah.
So creating that healthy place for people to work really became a passion for me. And I found a way to do it actually using a consulting firm that helped us. It was a lean consulting firm. They focused on first, not just how to be efficient, but how do you respect people who have great ideas about how to fix things and give them that opportunity.
Yeah.
So I just took that beyond that, and I actually joined the consulting firm that I'd used to help transform my group. And when I joined that firm, they said, "Yeah, it'd be great to write a book about your experience with that." So that's how it came to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. So take us back to when burnout started to become something discussed, because I feel like mental health and other challenges that people face in the workplace now, burnout is definitely one of them. People get disengaged and they just get get burned out. So when did that start becoming a discussion, and was that something early on that you felt like you had a way to help with that, or take us back to when it first started becoming a topic in conversations?
That's a great question, David. I'm trying to think of, it all it kind of evolved gradually for me. So trying to find a focal point where it really kicked in, it's a little tough. I would say sometime, not so much in the 80s, maybe in the 90s, it started
Okay.
to become a thing. The world started changing faster.
Yeah.
Corporate structures, not just in healthcare, but in many industries, saw a lot of merger and acquisition activity.
Yeah.
Disruption from technology started coming in, and things started changing faster and faster, made it harder and harder for people to keep up, and the old management styles just didn't work anymore.
Yeah.
The old top-down command and control. This is the way it is. Um, it just people would put up with it in the past, but it just failed in so many ways.
Yeah.
And I think it was at that transition point somewhere in the 90s, early
Okay.
2000s, perhaps
Okay.
globally.
So for someone that has heard the term burnout, in your own words, how would you define burnout?
Yeah, I'd use the same words that the World Health Organization uses. There's three dimensions of burnout. The first is exhaustion. You've just given everything you've got. Your job is overwhelming. You've given everything you've got. You've got nothing left to give. And when you get to that point, the next dimension of burnout shows up, which is cynicism or depersonalization. And it's a natural reaction to a self protective mechanism. When you're overwhelmed, you start to have to protect yourself from your organization, from your customers or clients, from your coworkers. And that cynicism is an effective way to do that. What it does, though, when you combine cynicism and exhaustion, you start to see the third dimension of burnout, which is that sense of inefficacy. Like what I'm doing doesn't really matter. It just kind of gnaws away at you. And it's in so many ways, it's the most deeply disturbing part of it because you start to feel like either you're worthless or your efforts are not worthwhile. So it's those three dimensions of exhaustion, cynicism, and that personal inefficacy that are really how burnout shows up.
Okay. No, that makes total sense. And I think signs of burnout and how to identify those as a leader, as someone in an organization that has the ability to make an impact, whether it's HR, direct, leadership manager, whatever. What kind of signs do you first kind of see in somebody that you might feel like there's going to be a future issue where you want to try to get out in front of that?
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's important as we launch into this discussion that you see the signs of burnout in a person, but those signs of burnout in a person are an indication not of dysfunction in the person, but of dysfunction in that person's workplace.
Yeah.
And so when that person's in that dysfunctional workplace, it starts to show up as disengagement, as absenteeism or presenteeism, as as disconnection from coworkers, as frustration, errors happening, any number of things where it seems like performance is decreasing,
Yeah.
teams are not functioning as well, and those are the start. It's a kind of a general gestalt of negativity, and then that can lead to, in the individual, ultimately leads to things like depression, substance abuse, family dysfunction, and even suicide.
Yeah.
And all those are downstream impacts of this.
And healthcare, I've heard people in HR burned out right now. I've been in the healthcare organization in my previous career, in previous roles, and so part of my career has been in the healthcare industry, working in an HR function capacity role to support physicians, to support practice managers in a physician setting. So I have seen it, and at the time I wasn't having to face it in a way to make a change or an impact of burnout. It was more how to boost morale, how to fix environment issues when there were issues with physicians butting heads or staff not getting along, and trying to create a better, healthy workplace environment. So I guess for burnout, does it vary based on generation? Like, are there signs or ways that people in their 20s and 30s get burned out versus people that are like at the later stages of their career, or is it all pretty much similar in nature?
That again, good question. The In healthcare, it seems to be across generations. It's kind of bimodal.
Yeah.
But there's also big gender gaps as well. More women burn out than men
Okay.
because just unfortunately the way our societies are designed, women have two jobs: their job of running the household as well as running doing their job at work, where men often aren't as involved in the household.
Yeah.
Not fair, not the way it should be. We have a lot of work to do to fix that, but that's a reality, and that shows up. Um, the younger generations are burning out a little faster. Mid generation, not quite so much necessarily, and then older generations of physicians are, till you get close to the point where they're a few years from retirement, and then they kind of it starts to decrease at that point. But there's so many factors that it even varies sometimes by organization, who's feeling it more intensely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now we have people working remotely, people work in hybrid environments, in office. I think more and more companies are going back to the way it was pre-COVID, in office setting, and getting back to where they were, before 2020. But, I feel like from what I've seen, what I've heard with work groups, it's more challenging to keep an engaged workforce when they are virtual, I feel like. So
Mhm.
I don't know what you've seen with the latest statistics, or how workplace environments, when they are remote, are they seeing a lower rate of burnout, or is it that's not really a factor? Is that work schedule playing a factor in helping people not get so burned out, I guess?
There are so many dynamics there because if you're not if you're working virtually, you don't get the stress of the commute, which can be a real benefit.
Oh yeah.
But you also don't get the personal connection to the same degree with
Yeah.
your coworkers.
Right.
And there's a lot of challenge there. The workload itself it can be just as overwhelming virtually as it is
Yeah.
in the office.
Yeah.
There's actually maybe one way to think about this. There's six drivers of burnout. The researchers 40 years ago, researchers Christina Maslach and Michael Leiter identified those three dimensions of burnout. They also identified six drivers that they called job person mismatches.
Okay.
And we can think about how those apply in both the in-office and virtual setting. The first of which is of those drivers is work overload, and they showed it drives exhaustion. And I like to sort of joke, really, I think we all could have figured out that when you're working too hard, you get exhausted.
Yeah.
And the challenge is most people, they think all there is to burnout is I'm overloaded and I'm exhausted. They stop there, and there's so much more to it.
Yeah.
And there's opportunities, so many opportunities, almost every job, to redesign the work so that you take waste and administrivia out of the work and let people focus on what is most important, valuable, and meaningful to them. And people don't burn out if they're focused on things that are valuable and meaningful. That's one of the big problems in healthcare. Doctors only spend a third of their time doing the things that actually bring them professional fulfillment, and two-thirds of their time. It's crazy. You've got doctors acting as stenographers. They're typing. They're fighting with insurance companies about prior authorizations. They're running all over the hospital or the clinic looking for support. So redesigning work can have a huge impact on that work overload. And not that many places invest the amount that they could to realize the value of that redesign. But these other five drivers of burnout that Maslach and Leiter identified include a lack of control and autonomy, insufficient appreciation, recognition, and reward, breakdown of community connection and collegiality, absence of fairness, and values conflicts. And those 5 drivers have everything to do with how you lead, whether you're leading a team as small as 2 or 3 people, or you're the CEO of a 20 to 30,000 person organization. If you lead in a way that make those drivers worse, you actually, if you micromanage, you actually drive cynicism. And you can lead in a different way that drives engagement, that actually counters that completely by reducing the impact of each of those drivers. And that's where the opportunities to lead and manage are so great. And the opportunity for true management and leadership development, because so many people don't know a different way to lead or manage. They're under such pressure to deliver on some metric that their one-up is expecting them to achieve, whether it's achievable or not.
Yeah.
And they've never been mentored or shown a way to lead differently. So they micromanage, just hoping to achieve that outcome. When in reality, being able to take the approach to empower their people and align their people, and then achieve that out, you get so much more engagement. You're able to achieve outcomes you wouldn't imagine you could. At the end of 5 years as CEO of this large medical group I was in charge of, we got recognized as the top performer in quality of care among 170 other medical groups across the state of California 2 years in a row. And this was a formal study by Consumer Reports and the California Health Performance Information System. We did not even know they were doing the study. One day, one of my doctors came walking in with Consumer Reports in his hand and says, "Hey, we're the best group in the state." But we weren't trying to achieve that. We were just trying to, make the thing work well.
Yeah.
And in the process, our physician satisfaction went from the 45th up to the 87th percentile. Our doctors were thriving. And it's a matter of how we put into place these opportunities for people to achieve what most people are motivated. They come to work, they really have something they're interested in. They want to achieve, they find their professional fulfillment, their self-actualization through this process. But they just get so little opportunity. And by managing differently, we can give them that opportunity.
Yeah, that amazing discussion, as Lisa had said. So thank you for the comments. Same with Lucy. It's definitely accurate. And so I think a lot of that falls in line with, like you said, it doesn't matter if it's a manager that has 2 or 3 direct reports or CEO of a 30,000 employee company, because it really all is the same focus, and helping to understand what motivates your team and what will keep them motivated in their work, giving them purposeful work, making sure that they understand what it takes to be successful in their role. Because a lot of people aren't just going to come to you and say, "Oh, I'm burned out. What do I do?" Like, they don't bring that up. Some people will. I've rarely heard someone come to me and say, "I'm burned out." I've heard it just a couple of times. And it's kind of like, they're sharing their frustration with me about, yes, I'm burned out. Here's why. So let's try to figure out solutions to help you with that. Are you needing us to hire more people? Are you in a managerial role, but you have so much on your plate because you don't know how to keep your team in line, so you're getting involved in problems that you shouldn't be? So it really just, you have to identify where people are in their position to eliminate the waste of efficiency, right? So I always try to find that. Where can you avoid wasting time so people don't get burned out? Because every organization is going to be different. So I think, are there some examples where you have seen that, where people share that they are burned out, and you don't even know it, because they don't really show it, but they truly come to somebody, or it may not be you, but someone you work with, and say, "Hey, I'm burned out. Like, what do I do? Like, I love my job. I love this company. I love working here, but I'm burned out." Has that come up before?
It's becoming more acceptable, but there's a huge stigma for most people to admit to burnout. It can be depending on the culture you work in, it can be a real career limiting statement to make.
Yeah.
And so people are very hesitant to do it. I mean, that's been a huge challenge with physicians. There's 300 to 400 physician suicides in the U.S. every year, and there are physician suicides across the world. But the stigma of a doctor saying they're burned out, the impact that would have on their future career is huge. And so there's a significant effort going on actually across the country, right across the U.S. right now, and actually going international around reducing that stigma of people admitting that they're stressed, that their doctors in particular or nurses stressed, burned out, looking for psychological help, connecting with the therapist, and having that be something that's valued and seen as a sign of strength rather than a sign of weakness. It's a big challenge and a big deal.
Yeah.
In terms of redesigning the work, that's where bringing in some outside resource can be really helpful if that resource takes the approach of not coming to say, we know how to do it better, here's what you do, but you all know you have a lot of good ideas you'd like to try, you just have never gotten the opportunity to do those.
Yeah.
We have the expertise in helping a team do that process far more efficiently, so the team's not wasting time trying to figure out how to do something like that they've never done before.
Yeah.
But people come out with amazing improvements, reductions in the time it takes to get work done, reduction in the number of hours people spend, and particularly in HR. There's many places, certainly I'm familiar with healthcare, where it can take months and months and months to replace a nurse who leaves by the time it goes through all the complexities of the HR process, the credentialing processes, all these other things. And so much of that time, we've taken groups through processes where they've taken it from 6 months down to 30 days.
Yeah.
And with no deterioration in the quality of the service. In fact, it's improved. And it's just a matter of everybody who touches that process, all those stakeholders have no idea what impact what they do has on everybody else. And once they all come in a room together and learn it, it's amazing what you can do. So, even this burnout, it does hit HR officers, it does hit the HR process. Gosh, there's just so many opportunities to make a difference.
Yeah. And Lucy commented, many people do not care when you tell them you are stressed. This occurs even in HR. So it's unfortunate. And I think it's becoming more and more of a conversation, especially with, my previous guest last Monday was talking about mental health. We kicked off the month. It's Men's National Health Awareness Month. So it's really interesting that this is becoming more and more of a conversation to find the right way an organization to support their team, knowing that they're dealing with a lot in their life, work, life, family, outside stressors and things that they will bring into the workplace. And it may cause burnout. It may cause them frustration to decide to quit the job and move on. So then you have positions that are sometimes hard to fill. So I think trends into next year, obviously recruiting and filling jobs and folks that are still having a hard time finding good people to hire is still going to be a problem. It's still going to be a challenge. So I guess what advice would you give if somebody is watching that is in an HR role, a manager role, someone that can make an influence on the workplace? What would some of those steps be, or things to look out for, or tell them kind of what would be some good steps to focusing more on burnout and how to I guess avoid it, how to help? Is there some steps to take in just evaluating, getting feedback? Where would you tell someone to start if they're trying to make this an impact in the world?
Depending on what role you have, there's different ways to start. The person who has the most influence on burnout is the CEO of the organization. No question about it. They set the tone for the culture. And if they make the statement that, if they commit themselves to this and own it, this is not it's something you can delegate some of the steps involved, but you can't delegate ownership of this kind of transformational change in the culture of an organization. And too often, I think CEOs have so much on their plate. If there's an opportunity to have a wellness officer or director, they can think they can assign it away, and it doesn't work that way, because we really have to change the culture in the organization itself.
Yeah.
And it's doable once you have the process and you can see how to do it. What you can, and what I tell people in high leadership level positions, the first thing they can do is to go shadow people while they're working, actually see the challenges they have trying to do the job. Because when you're in a high leadership position, you have no clue. It's impossible for you to know, because people aren't going to come and tell you the problems. But if you go and look, and with a supportive approach of, I'm here to help, and it takes preparation. You don't just drop in out of the blue unannounced and not freak people out. But
Yeah.
if you come in and say, hey, we're trying to figure this out. We're going to try to make a difference. I'd love to understand what the challenges are. And I'd love to just watch you work, see what you're doing. Then it can make a difference, and particularly over time. So watching, observing, asking people what could be improved, asking them what they think you as the CEO or the senior leader need to know in order to help them do their jobs better. Taking notes, taking action, even small actions immediately, and communicating those broadly.
Yeah.
If you're a frontline manager with a smaller team, just thanking your people every day for something they did that made a difference, and being specific about what it was they did, how it made a difference, what impact it had, and even how it made you feel.
Yeah.
Those kind of things are huge, and they're easy to do. It doesn't take a whole program design to do
Right.
that. We're doing that tomorrow.
Right.
And you can start shadowing pretty quickly if you're in a leadership position. But even the CHRO can benefit from going and shadowing and seeing what the challenges are.
Yeah.
It's something that everybody can do.
Yeah. I'm just bringing up some of the comments because I think some of these things they're basic. It's empathetic leadership. People want to feel heard and cared for. They're coming to do a job, and they want to feel like the managers, the leaders are going to show empathy, and just some of the things that a lot of people don't focus on enough. So it's one thing to say that you do these things. It's another thing to actually show it and prove that you are going to show empathy. So acting and being that, model of the company in that kind of role, the CEO, the CFO, whoever it is, the manager, acting and talking about empathy and showing it, and really just helping people understand when they have issues, they want to feel heard, and they want to have someone to go to, whether it's an HR or somebody, so that they can find a way to address it and help them through those things. And that's going to go a long way. And when you have people like that feel like their company is behind them and supporting them, you're going to probably keep that employee longer. And if they're a good worker and a good employee, then you're not going to have open positions and having to fill positions every month. So
Oh yeah,
Brittany,
there's organizations that have been doing this well for a long time.
yeah,
They didn't go, they went through whatever major crisis we've had over the last few decades
yeah,
and did not lose employees.
yep,
And they did not have a great resignation, and they've never had trouble recruiting people, because their culture is so well known in their communities. People want to come to work there.
yep,
It's just a
exactly.
matter of create. It takes time. The
Yeah,
other thing is, if you're trying to do this and you're motivated and you go in and you do something different, it may not be well accepted right at first immediately. If
yeah,
it's a significant change, people will be suspicious.
yeah,
You got to stick with it. It takes time. It can take weeks, months, or years, depending on how big the change is you're trying to achieve. But
right,
you're doing the right thing. And you're in a position that makes a difference. So it's worth pursuing it.
right. Yeah, as Brittany said, something small can make a big difference, and it's free, and that's spot on. Lisa, this is the main podcast. This is an amazing podcast and guest. Thank you, David. Seems basic, but it is not. So it really is, like, it's the basics, and not overcomplicating it, because it doesn't have to be complicated. And if you have a culture and core values that really align with that, then people are going to see it, and you're going to have employees who are going to make the workplace better, make the culture better. So as you said, like the top shelf topic, the problem with burnout is the workplace, not the worker. So, fixing that workplace issue isn't going to happen overnight. Like you said, it might take some time, but if everybody is bought into it and the CEO, the owner, leadership are kind of steering that shift and showing employees that they will feel heard and they will feel valued and hopefully see the empathy behind the leadership team, it really might make a huge impact on the mental health, the burnout ratio of the company. Because if you gave everybody a poll and said on a scale from 1 to 10, how are you with burnout right now, some people may not even respond in an honest way. They might just say, "Oh, I'm good," because they don't want to maybe put themselves in a position where, like you said before, if you bring up the fact that you're burned out, what is the company going to do in that situation? Feel like, "Oh, they can't handle this job? Should we find a replacement?" Or help them and support them and say, "Yeah, we hear you. You're burned out. We hear you. Let's find ways to fix it." So, um, what what other trends in this topic of burnout do you feel like leaders and business owners and HR are going to face next year in
Yeah.
2025?
2025. Wow. Real quick, one thing about if you're in a middle management position and you start to pursue this and you don't necessarily have support from above you in the company, which unfortunately is the case. I've certainly been in those situations myself. Um, you can still make a big difference. It's also important to do as much as you can to keep connected with the people you report up to, explain to them what you're doing and why. Because if you're acting very differently, even if you're getting great results, people may think this person's not really a team player, even if they're getting great results, and that can even put your own career at risk. So do pursue this work, but do to make sure you're talking to your one up and making sure they understand why you're doing what you're doing, and that you've got some agreement and approval and support from them in the process.
Yeah.
Going into 2025, I think we're going to see, well, there's a couple of things. First of all, we're coming out of this election that's just been brutal on personal relationships. And, in so many companies, you've got people on a team who are on both ends of the political spectrum, and helping those teams heal is going to be so important. Coming back to those basics of building that community and respect,
Yeah.
finding what common values we can find and building around those, absolutely vital. With the changes that are happening with technology now with AI, there's going to be so much threat of disruption that being on top of being as on top of it as we can is really key. And being aware that people will start to feel threatened. There's not only are blue collar jobs going by the wayside, but white collar jobs could go by the wayside as well. Learning to work with AI, use AI to your advantage rather than develop this sense of fear that it's going to take away from my job or the jobs of my people. Those people who figure out how to work it well are far more likely to be the ones that succeed and actually maintain theirs and their people's jobs in the process.
Yeah.
I think those are the two big, between the political factions and the which are going to lead to some financial disruptions probably as well. But the tech disruption, I think, is the thing I wonder about the most.
Well, next Monday you can tune in. We'll be talking AI. I have an expert in AI coming on, so she will.
Good.
I've seen her live and she's incredible. So AI is the next topic for next Monday. So you have a really good, clear content on your website, pauldechant.md.com. So anybody that is watching, this takes you out to his website. It's got a lot of information. It's got his book if anyone is interested in looking at that. But you've got some really good content. You've got a blog. You've got some really good key aspects of your focus. So if anybody wants to learn more about Dr. Paul DeChant, what he does, look him up. And for those watching live, because this will be on demand on podcast platforms after it's finished live, but if you scan this QR code on the screen, it's a 30-minute free consult with Paul if you want to connect with him personally and kind of see what your personal struggles are, challenges, things that you want to talk to him about. See what he can maybe do for you and your organization. If you are on TikTok, he's got some great content on TikTok. That's how he and I connected, and LinkedIn as well. So you can find his information on there, or you can go to pauldechantmd.com. So anything else you want to add to the conversation? Any comments or anything that we didn't cover that you think are worth bringing up?
David, first of all, I appreciate so much the work you do, this opportunity, your podcast, it's amazing. You're covering so many great topics, and the
Yeah.
opportunity to share my topic here as well, I really value. I think the one thing for people to be aware of, while all of my prior experience has been in healthcare, the work I do now is really industry agnostic. So don't feel like, if you're wondering if this would work for you and you want to talk to me, don't feel like, oh, I'm not in healthcare, I can't talk to him. The same principles apply. I've worked with podcast companies. I've worked with franchise companies, do hair salons, you name it. The same principles are everywhere. So feel free. My mission now is just to help make as many workplaces healthy workplaces as I can.
Yeah, you're doing amazing work, and we need more of people like you out there to help. So there's a lot to be done, but you can only do so much. So we obviously rely on people watching this podcast and learning about what you do and find ways that they can bring what they learn back to their workplace and their job and personal life. Because like I said, there's a lot that people have gone through the last few years, and in a pandemic, and if it's been a layoff they've dealt with, HR individuals, I've had some really struggled, challenging situations in my career the last few years. So it's something that we will always, I think, focus on in the future: mental health awareness and trying to avoid burnout, because as different generations come into the workplace, how they work and how they interact and how they are managed is going to be very different as what we've seen in the past. So you've seen a lot of that. You've seen the evolution. So again, anybody that wants to hear more about how Dr. Paul DeChant can help you personally in your position, certainly scan that QR code or go to his website and make sure to connect with him. So I really appreciate your time today. It's been great to talk and finally get connected. We've been chatting about this for quite some time, and so keep doing what you're doing. And I really value what you do and appreciate your time. So um, wish you the best. And you have any upcoming books or anything you're working on in the future?
No, well, I think about books. It's a lot of work to write a book. So I have thoughts, but I'm sticking right now, I think, to TikToks and blog posts and podcasts.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I so appreciate you and the work you're doing.
yeah.
Hosting a podcast is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I haven't taken that on yet. I'm happy to be a guest. And
Yeah.
I'm glad for what you're doing, David. It's making a huge difference.
Yeah, that's why I do it, because I want to bring people on like you that are passionate about a topic and really help that person share what they know in their world and in their insight with whatever topic it is. But like I said, next week's AI, and I don't use AI as much as I probably could. And she asked me, she's like, "Are you doing this? Are you doing this?" And I said, "Nope." So there will be things that I'm sure I'll learn just like everybody else on the show watching. So, but hope everyone has a great Veterans Day. If you are off work or if you're working, thanks for making this part of your day. And Paul, we'll talk to you real soon. Have a great rest of your day, and take care.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All righty. See ya.